Welcome. This video is called Everything is a Thought. So I want to point to a certain possibility, a certain way of relating to thought that is actually quite freeing. It's instantly releasing. So I guess first of all, the question I want to answer is, what will this do for you, or why do you care about this? Well, that's an important question to answer, and I don't believe in trying to convince somebody of anything that doesn't add value or help in any way. So really, the point of this whole sort of exercise, or this pointing, is to show you that there's a way to feel, to experience spontaneity, to experience freedom, to experience presence, to experience even interconnection, interconnectedness with your environment. A simple, spontaneous intimacy. And that's possible now. That's possible right here. That's a possibility you carry around with you at all times. So that's really what I'm getting at here. And if I'm able to point to this relationship with thought in a certain way, you may get a taste of it, or you may get a full-blown experience of it, or even a realization of it. But depending on sort of your history with this type of communication or your experience, this may be somewhat familiar, or it may seem to come out of left field. But all I would suggest is give it a listen, give it a try, open up your mind a bit, and let it in. See if this type of pointing has an effect on you, has an effect on your emotion body, on your internal process, on your thought process. See if something doesn't relax, doesn't open up, doesn't come more into presence, more into direct experience, effortless, spontaneous experience. So to start, I just want to point out something about the nature of thought, and that is that we all think, we all have thoughts, that thoughts are going on, thoughts are happening in our minds most of our waking hours. Not all the time, but for most of us, most of the time we're awake, there is an almost continuous stream of thoughts. Now, we might be aware of this. We might be partially aware of this. We might be intermittently aware of this. And occasionally someone is kind of not aware of this, like, oh, I think on occasion, or occasionally I have thoughts, but a lot of the time I don't. Now, usually that situation with that person is that they are so identified with thoughts, so taken by the stream of thoughts, and so entangled in the thoughts that one doesn't even realize they are thinking, that there's actually quite a bit of thought going on. And as I mentioned in another video, often if somebody has no experience with meditation and they sit down to meditate for the first time, one of the first things they notice is how many thoughts there are. And that's simply just becoming aware of, stepping out of that stream and that entanglement with thoughts, and becoming aware of, like, whoa, there are so many thoughts going on in my mind all the time. So the first thing I want to point out is that there, whether we're aware of it or not, there are a lot of thoughts going on a lot of the time. Now, this may be quite simple to a lot of people as well, but it's important to kind of put that out there and use that as the beginning context for how I'm going to point. Now, when I say everything is a thought, this might sound sort of radical, but what I mean by that is every thing you consider concrete, real, external, internal, anything you compare to something else, these are all thoughts. it might not surprise us to realize that the thought I'm a bad person is unhealthy or unhelpful or negative, but it often surprises people to realize that the thought I'm a good person is equally unreal, unhelpful, and it's not positive, right? It's that both of those thoughts are basically making an object out of what you are, right? They're creating something out of a bunch of thoughts about a history of you, comparing one thought to another thought and seeming to make a continuity out of thoughts. Okay, so these are all things, the things of the thought world. The things are me, the events of my life, my problems, the world out there, other people, what other people think about me, where I'm going, what I'm going to do to get there, my characteristics, my nationality, my gender, all of these ultimately are thoughts. Now, this is usually the part where the mind starts to either feel a little uncomfortable or outright disagree and say, well, no, my gender is a very real thing. I can physically and visually confirm it. My skin color is a real thing. My history, I can tell you where I was born. I can look at a birth certificate and offer you evidence for that. So this is where it gets tricky to talk about, but I'm not making a statement about the physical reality, what's available directly in the senses, colors and sounds and tastes and smells. I'm not making a statement about any of that, actually, although it might sound like I am. I'm actually making a statement about the images of all of those experiences that our mind constructs and then replaces our direct experience of life with those images. And those are things, objects, times, places. So I'm not saying there's nothing there. There's nothing that exists. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that the things that seem to exist as solid, as continuous, that you contemplate and think about a lot of the day, those are simply objects of mind. Those are objects of thought. Okay. So then, well, what's the risk of letting go of those, or what's the risk of seeing that what I'm saying is true? That ultimately, what's happening here, the sense world and the experience of direct experience of reality, what does that offer? Like, what am I giving up if I give up a bunch of thought objects and concepts and beliefs and my past and my future and my problems and my solutions? Well, all I can say is that you will never be disappointed. It's profoundly intimate, and it is vast, but it's also right here, and it's quite peaceful. It's sublime. And I'm not describing something you don't know. If you think back on your life, you think back on times or moments that were sublime, that were intimate, that felt just free, that felt like wonder, that felt like awe. Those moments were actually when, for various reasons, those thought objects dropped away for you. Those constructs dropped away. Now, when they come back, when the mind starts making more thoughts around those circumstances, it will make a reflection of them. So it does make them into an object. But what actually caused that sense of peace, that sense of interconnectedness and flow, and like everything was okay, what actually, the result of that was direct experience of this, direct experience of presence, which isn't something that you can really make a concept about. It's kind of a conundrum, but the sense world, the direct experience of sensation, of feeling, of sound, and of consciousness, which is what thoughts are made out of. The direct experience of all of those, which aren't actually experienced as separate. That in and of itself is quite blissful and freeing and enjoyable. It's immersive, and it's very satisfying, you could say. So everyone has an experience of this. In fact, the irony of this whole thing is that everyone has an experience of this all the time. It doesn't go. There's just a lot of thoughts that we've learned to pay a lot of attention to that seem to cover it up with thought objects, with things, as I'm describing. Everything is a thought. So these ideas about myself, my past, my future. And if we look at thought, we see a lot of it is about past and future, right? Even if that past is 5 minutes ago or an hour ago or yesterday. And the future is 5 minutes from now, the next conversation I'm going to have, what's going to happen tomorrow, what my plans are for the next week, month, and year. So these thoughts about time, the past and future, are objects. They are things in the way I'm speaking. And they are like ghosts. They're like clouds floating across a vast sky. They don't define you. They don't bind you. They don't take you out of direct experience. They actually don't take you out of presence. They're just sort of distractions because they seem so real. We've given so much attention to them. We've put so much investment in them that we feel like we have to keep looking at them. We have to keep honoring, their presence. And by doing so, they actually do become quite solid. They feel solid. They feel very real. And sometimes we find this comforting because we feel like we're in control. But a lot of the time, it's actually very, very uncomfortable when we realize and feel like, even though I feel like I'm trying to control things all the time, I still feel so out of control. I feel bound by time, even though I feel like I'm trying to manage my time, right? So it can be quite uncomfortable when we sort of start finding ourselves in this prison of thought objects, of the time frame that we imagine and think about and contemplate, the separation, meaning I'm here and everything else is out there, other people, my spouse, my lover, my parents, my children, all those, they're out there and I have to manage them. And this is all thought, right? This is creating thought objects out of my family, out of the world, out of the past and future, right? So I would suggest that this possibility is immediately available, and just hearing this message or something like it often gives us a taste of it. But you can also sort of lead yourself there, and you can just question, what is a thought? Is the future, can I find it directly? So if I'm thinking about the future, a conversation I'm going to have in a short time, or what I'm going to be doing in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or where I can't wait to get to, like I'm just so impatient right now because I have to get to whatever you're picturing. That's a thought, right? So we can ask, what's a thought and what's not a thought? What's right here that no thought touches? What's right here that we don't need thought to define, to describe, to find? What could never be lost? And then you get a feel for it, a sense of it. You don't need to think about the answer, of course, but you can start to get a sense of that presence. And if you really want to go, full bore, you can start to explore what it feels like to live without thought objects, to live without having to obsess about a past and future and control and others and yourself, and always making dualistic constructs out of all of that. What is it like to just let go of all of it? Does everything stop? Does the world disappear? No. Does the body disappear? No. If anything, it just melds into everything, into the experience of now, of presence. You'll feel more here. You'll feel more aliveness. You'll feel more vivid sensory experience. You'll feel more wonder, more awe, more peace, more freedom. If you just trust the moment, trust what's here, not what you have to dream up or conceptualize or imagine. Can we live without things? Can we live without the seeming solidity that our mind offers and just experience the constant flow, the flux of sensory experience. If you watch children, they do this. They know how to do this, especially young children. As they grow older, they learn to move into a thought world little by little. We teach them to do it. It's part of normal development, I would say. But if you watch young children, they're at peace. They're in awe. They're in flow. They're not standing apart from themselves, wondering when the play is going to end and managing the next moment. There's no contemplation of the next moment. Just engaged and enjoying it. No goal, no purpose, just enjoying what's happening. So, and a lot of adults say this. I just want the wonder of my childhood back. I want the innocence back. And the good news is it's never been lost. Really. And this is what I'm pointing to, is the innocence and wonder of living without objects, mental objects. Just living directly in experience. Give it a shot. Tell me what you think. Or if you have questions, let me know. Have a good day.